There are several paradoxes in US politics that seem unsolvable due to their complexity, ideological contradictions, or structural entrenchments. Today, I'm going to talk about some of the most prominent ones, and by doing so, hopefully give you more of a broader perspective on like why our politics and our laws and our culture is the way it is, because a lot of it seems on the surface to not make sense or contradict itself. And a lot of it has to exist within that way because of how the US is structured through its laws and through the Constitution. The Constitution is actually the most important document in the history of the United States, because the Constitution basically sets the conditions on which this country grows. And the people who created it were from a time that is so far removed from today that they could not foresee the issues that would come up due to the things that are enshrined within the Constitution. So let's start. The freedom versus security paradox. Americans deeply value individual freedom, but at the same time, national security is a major priority. After events like 9/11, government surveillance and other restrictions were implemented in the name of safety. But these measures often infringe on personal liberties, sparking debates on how to balance freedom with security. And this, like, freedom versus security is so, that one's like such a mind bender, because the the freedom versus security thing is, how should I say this? So there are a lot of people in the country who are willing to give up a large amount of their freedom for the idea of having security. And it's strange because a lot of them are conservative, at least from my point of view. Maybe they're like, maybe it's even like across the board. But from my point of view, like people who are very supportive of the law, of the military, of the government, they are the most sheepish in the sense that they are like, and it's not bad to trust authorities and stuff, or at least in concept, you know, the idea is that the authority knows more than you and like they have your best interest at heart. But the thing is, it's not always that way. All right. A lot of the time, the government is very at odds with the populace. And that is becoming more and more apparent as time goes on. And you will see this become even more apparent in the future. I mean, I always point and laugh at England for how they're handling like national security. They're basically, on one hand, they're like putting cameras everywhere and they're like listening to all the citizens on that fucking island. And they're doing crazy shit over there. But if they had such a interest in security, why are they letting everybody in their country? Like, it's insane. And like, I'm not trying to make this a weird race thing. It's just like, we're going to talk more. It's like culture. It's like people from other countries, forget about the race. The fact that they're from other countries means that they have a totally different culture. They have a totally different idea of like how to go about your day, what's appropriate behavior in public, how to treat the weaker members of society. And so when you like I'm fine with immigration to a certain extent, but like if you bring in a lot, if you let a lot of people in at one time, like over time, it's kind of okay. But if you let a lot of people in at one time, what happens is that their culture becomes solidified within the host country. And I mean host like they're hosting you, not like a host, like a parasite host. Okay. So what happens is they start to form like their own microcosm of like their own country within the host country, and they don't assimilate to like the culture of the host country. And so that's why it's important that when you like have people immigrate to your country, you kind of spread them out, or you don't let a lot in at once. Okay. And that's just so they can assimilate and get used to like how things are in the host country. So when it comes to back to like the actual point, the freedoms versus security thing, there are a lot of people in America who are like, we're all about freedom, but they like, it's all talk, because they are willing to let the government spy on them. They put Ring cameras in front of their house. They support like these weird government agencies like spying on them all the time, like because they think it'll make them safer. And like the Ring camera, it's good, but it's also bad. It's good because it's good to have a camera by your front door. It's bad because the law enforcement can look at that whenever they want. Okay. And it's just like if all the security cameras in the country, like if there were like a billion of them, but they were all just like only available to the person who owns the camera, like that'd be fine. Because it was like that for a long time. No one ever complained. And it was a good deterrent from robberies and all kinds of like violent crime. But moving into the future, due to like how interconnected all technology is becoming, we are getting more and more, our privacy is getting eroded away. Okay. And privacy is part of freedom. And if you watched my last video about like how rich people like care so much about like they use their money for like freedom, and a lot of that involves like having privacy, like having a lot of land where like no one can like bother you. There's a reason for that. Like it's not the government's business to see inside your house. It's not the government's business to just be able to look at what anybody's doing, because it's not their business. You know, like they shouldn't be able to do that. It's fucking weird. But there's a lot of people who really believe like letting the government do this shit is like, you need to do that for national security, and to a certain extent you do, I'm sure, but like our lives are not better because of TSA. Our lives are not better because there has been the NSA, which spies on everyone's calls. Like there have been multiple reports about how like the NSA doesn't really like NSA and like police wiretapping, all of that stuff. One, it doesn't prevent crime, because you cannot arrest someone just because they're like very suspicious. They have to actually commit the crime and then you arrest them, which makes sense because like there's a whole movie on this called Minority Report. I don't know if you've ever heard of it. It's like a Steven Spielberg movie. It starred Tom Cruise. It's from the early 2000s. The premise of the whole movie is that there are these psychics who can predict crime, and there's no crime anymore because the psychics, they can predict crime before it happens. So like the big question of the movie is like, is it right to arrest people when they haven't done anything, basically? The answer is no, because the future can always change no matter what. And so there's no point in spying on people. It's good to like know who is going to do something, but at the same time, like the FBI never fucking stops them, bro. Like they don't. And there's plenty of reports of them like, oh, they were on our radar. That's like the biggest meme whenever there's like a giant shooting. Like the FBI will say, oh, he was on our radar. But anyway, we got to move on because like, I mean, freedom is obvious. Freedom. The thing about freedom is, just keep this in mind. Like, in order to have freedom, there needs to be danger. You cannot have freedom and security. Like, those two things are not compatible with each other, because freedom is the freedom to do whatever you want, basically. And security is like, there are rules to that and there are boundaries. So that's a big paradox within our country, the land of the free, supposedly. Okay. Number 2, the equality versus meritocracy paradox. The U.S. is founded on the principles of equality of opportunity, but it also champions meritocracy, where success is supposedly based on individual ability and effort. However, the playing field is not equal due to systemic inequalities. Examples given: race, class, geography. This creates tension between promoting fairness and rewarding hard work. This is something I have argued with the libertarians in my life, the equality versus meritocracy thing, because I feel like a lot of libertarians, they actually do what they say they believe in. They work really hard and they build a nice life for themselves, but at the same time they think everyone is able to do it, and that's just not the case. Like our country could not function properly if everyone was an entrepreneur. Like there are some people who need to be laborers. There are some people who need to do dirty jobs. There are some people who like just need to be bureaucrats. Okay. Like these people are the structure of our country. They are like the scaffolding that supports the larger corporations and market forces and stuff like that. But does that mean they should make a lot of money? I don't know. I think they should make enough to live if that's their job that they're doing for their life. But a lot of people on the meritocracy side believe your life is exactly what you make it. There should be no helping at all from outside, specifically government and welfare forces. And there should be no like DEI. There should be no minority stuff like that helps them advance. And on some level, I kind of agree with this, but on another level, there are areas within the country that are very racially homogenous. So it is important to have some level of affirmative action, because if you are a minority and a majority, like, we don't even have to say white. We can say like you're a black person in like a majority Latino area. Like, you are going to be discriminated against because you are you are not the majority race in the area, you know, and it's just human nature to do that. You have to actively go against your own nature to want to help someone outside of the tribe. And a lot of people will say like, no, that's not me. Like, I'll help anybody. And like, you were probably taught that from a young age. Like, you were taught to be a good person. OK, a lot of people are not taught that. A lot of people are taught they are taught whatever their parents tell them, you know, or whatever authority figure in their life tells them. And sometimes it's not the best thing. So there, in my opinion, in like maybe the last 15 years, we'll say, there has been a lot of effort to, I don't want to say, like, how can I word this to not offend like every single person who watches this video? I'll just say that there has been a lot of shoehorning of like minorities for minority's sake. Like, there was a trope of like the token black friend. And that's a trope. That is not a stereotype. That is a trope, like a media trope. So there will be like a bunch of like white friends and they will have like one black friend, and it looks unnatural. And that's not to say that is unnatural. It's not, okay? Because that happens all the time. But if it's happening in every show, like, at least include some other black friends, you know, or make it like, it just like, there's a lot where it just doesn't make sense, you know, like why is there a group of friends that is perfectly like, there's one Asian friend, there's one Latino friend, there's one white friend, there's one black friend, there's one like Pacific Islander. Like, stuff just doesn't happen in real life that often to the extent that media has us believe. And maybe it's to have us not condition us, but to get our brains more used to the idea of like this thing being possible. But I feel like if you're a good person, you already are friends with everyone. Like, you don't need to be told. Like, so what it's really just doing is just pissing off like conservatives for no reason, and it's adding fuel to the divide that's going on in this country these days. So I don't think that it's very good to just add minorities as like flavor to something where, like, okay, let me give you an example. Okay, like, so it doesn't sound so bad. If there's something historical and there are not minorities within it, because within history, like, let's say they are doing a documentary or a not a biopic, but a historical like timepiece or period piece on medieval England. You know, there's not a lot of black people in there, but Netflix will have you believe that there were black royalty within England at the time, you know, and maybe it's a style thing, but at the same time, it's like, why? Like, why are we doing this? This is like not serious. If you want to make a period piece, it has to be believable. It has to get past, it has like, I have to be able to suspend my disbelief in order to watch your art. And if I can't do that, it's like, why did you make this? But yeah, so this is equality versus meritocracy. Like I think there should be a level of like affirmative action. There should be some, but there also should be a meritocracy. But like, on the other hand, we should not get too far within the meritocracy side either, because then the strongest of society just run over the weakest of society. And you might say, well, that's how it works in that's the natural order of things. That's how it works in the jungle, you know, but we don't fucking live in the jungle. We're like civilized. You know, we're civilized now. It's good to have a meritocracy. It's good to have incentives for people to strive to become more than ordinary, you know. But then it gets to a point, and this is where we're at now, actually. Companies get too big. Entrepreneurs get too powerful. They are now dictating the law, and they are bending the rules in their favor, because we did not do a good enough job to restrict how big they could get. You know, like, I was arguing with the libertarian that I know, and he was saying, why do you want to take away money from like billionaires? They earn that. And I'm just like, dude, because they're too powerful. They are writing the laws in this country, basically, through lobbying and like political donations. And two, they have way more money they can ever spend. So like, why not? Why wouldn't you take it away from them? At some point, there's a certain point where you make so much money that it just becomes a number. It just becomes a high score. So yeah, I don't think they should have that. It doesn't make any sense. It actively harms the country. It's literally like if you let Godzilla walk through New York City and he is bumping into things. Like, that's what billionaires are. They're these giant kaiju monsters who are like trying to walk through America, but they're just knocking down things. They're destroying the environment. They're creating a path of destruction in their wake. So yeah, meritocracy is not good. Too much meritocracy is not good, I should say. Too much equality is like can hamper the ambitions of the country and make what is so great about America like it can dull that. I'll just say that. And that's like another paradox. All right, the next one is small government versus government services. Paradox. Many Americans, especially conservatives, advocate for small government with fewer regulations and lower taxes. At the same time, there is significant demand for government-provided services like Social Security, Medicare, public education, and infrastructure. Balancing these opposing desires creates a constant tension in policymaking. So this is like another thing that the libertarians are very big on, and I think conservatives in general, even though it really feels like the majority of conservatives and people who vote Republican like do rely on Social Security and Medicare, and like they let public education go obviously because of like who they're putting in office, but their infrastructure too, dude, like like have you been to the South? I live in the South. Our fucking roads always have potholes in them. Okay. And like the electrical grid in Texas will go out when it's a normal rain. It doesn't even have to be like a big storm. Okay, it's almost third world country conditions here. The only thing is different is that they fix it pretty quick, which is good. But like if you just had good infrastructure, you wouldn't need to do that. Okay, well, like I think there was even, I'm gonna try to find the like something to put on the screen to like prove this, but there was a time where the government gave Texas granted the electrical companies down here, because we have our own grid, and they gave them, I don't know how many billions in dollars to improve the grid, and they just didn't do it. Okay. And they never got punished for it, and they never were made to pay it back. So they got like billions of dollars in money and just didn't do jack shit with it. So the thing about small government and like fewer regulations, I can understand why that would make sense to someone. Lowering taxes also. So regulations. The thing about regulations is that, yes, they will slow down the productivity of a company, because when there's like, you can think of regulations as just like rules. So when you make a product, there are a bunch of regulations around it. There are a bunch of rules around it. Let's say you want to have let's say you want to make food out of your house. You can do that, but you have to follow regulations. And why is that? Well, there was a woman who not too long ago on TikTok, she started selling this fucking sauce called pink sauce out of her house, and she did not follow any regulations. She made the sauce out of like milk. So people would like get this sauce in the mail. They would order it from her. She was like a TikTok creator. They would order it from her, and by the time they got the sauce, it was like rotten because there was milk in it. There was like ranch in it. So like, this is why we have regulations. Okay. This is why you need to know the rules of whatever you're doing, because if you don't, then something that you're not aware of happens and people get botulism or they get sick, or like if you're building a house and you don't follow certain regulations, people can get trapped in the house if there's a fire. Like if you're using shitty wood that is not regulation wood, the house can collapse on a person. So yeah, and like it's the same thing with like anything. I saw this discussion on Reddit. I probably can't find it, but someone said that the reason, like for every regulation that there is, somebody died. So if there is an industry that seems like there's a lot of regulations, that means a lot of people died for all of those regulations to be put in place. Regulations are written in blood. So I understand that there needs to be fewer regulations, but they are there for a reason. I will just say that. And some of them are outdated. Like some of them could be there because the technology back then was like not as safe as it is now. So like there are certain regulations that need to be like trimmed. Some people want lower taxes. I think that's fair. I think a lot of like what we get taxed goes to Israel. A lot of it goes to paying for dinners for politicians. It goes to Trump making a ballroom in the White House. Like our taxes don't need to go to war. Our taxes don't need to go to other countries. I mean, for some countries do need like aid, obviously, or like their people are gonna die. And we also like give aid for free. Like we don't put strings on it, which is interesting. I don't want to say like that's good or bad because I genuinely don't know. Because I know we give like North Korea like a lot of aid, and we never tell them like, no, you can't. Like if you do this, we're not going to give you aid. I think maybe Trump did that in the past, but like we generally don't do that for certain reasons, moral reasons. And that's also why we have like Medicaid and public education. You know, we don't want a populace that is stupid unless you are running for a Republican Senate seat. And I don't think that has to be the case. I think it more has to do with like you could have a Republican Party that actually does that is virtuous, that does care about the people. You know, I mean, I think that's probably what it started as. And then over time, the GOP took over the Tea Party, you know, like all that stuff like has morphed the Republican Party to be majority corporate, to be the corporate party, you know, outwardly. And they can get away with this because they hide behind the church. Okay, they align themselves with like the conservative Christian agendas. But they use that as like a mask to slip through their pro-corporate legislation. And yeah, like I just think we do need government provided services. If I were libertarian, I would say, no, we don't need any of that because we have a lot. But I'm not libertarian. I am very pro citizen. And I think that we should have more. I think like the thing about like welfare stuff is that you have to go looking for it. It doesn't just come to you for free. A lot of people are under the assumption that you can just get this for free, but that's actually the military. You know, like if you work for the military, you sign your life away and you get all these free benefits. That's almost socialistic. But I feel like we should have that for the average person, you know. But then no one, like the idea is that no one would sign up for the military, sign their life away if things are too good for the average citizen. So it's just really weird. I really don't like the small government services paradox. You know, like I think there has to be government services to a certain extent, because if we take them all away, then people are straight up going to die. And that is because the living standard in this country, the wages cannot support the standard of living. The gap between those two things are getting wider and wider. Okay. And I'll just leave it at that. So let's move on. Number 4, polarization versus compromise paradox. U.S. politics is highly polarized with two major parties, Republicans and Democrats, often unable to find common ground. Yet, the structure of government, especially the need to pass legislation through a divided Congress, inherently requires compromise. This creates a paradox where effective governance is nearly impossible without compromise, but the electorate and political climate are increasingly uncompromising. So what does this mean? It means that on the citizen level, we fucking hate each other. Republicans hate Democrats. Democrats hate Republicans. And I'm not going to go into like who's right, who's wrong. Even though if you've been listening, you can kind of tell like what side I mostly fall on, not all the way. But we are like, no one can argue that we are at this time, very polarized. We're very separated. We can't stand each other. I do call myself an independent. I don't call myself a Democrat because I don't believe that Democrats anymore support democratic values. I think both sides are very corporate, and I think that they are incentivized to sow the seeds of polarization within this country. I think they love that there's discord among the citizenry, because if we actually got together and if Republicans and Democrats got together and said, hey, let's talk about what we actually agree on, they would quickly find out. And I know, because I've done this with Republicans and libertarians. I have gotten together with them and we have talked it out, and we have arrived at a consensus that what really is the problem in this country is the elite, and how they are, like, their influence over the government should not be there. So going back to like the subject, which is the polarization versus compromise, what I'm basically saying is that we are very polarized, and on the legislative level, we have to compromise, because you cannot have a Congress that cannot compromise. Like it just doesn't work. And it's funny because even now that the like most of the government is majority Republican, they are still disagreeing, because like even though you can totally wipe out one party, but then you just realize that all the people in your party that like helped you wipe the other party out, they have different interests. Okay, so there's always some level of polarization. Okay, even now. So yeah, it's just strange how politically we are on the opposite sides of, like, if there was one room, people would be like on two different walls. Okay, across from each other. That's how far away we are from each other, but we still need to work together. And that is like the structure of government. It's like that on purpose. We cannot be too divided or so divided that we can't work together, because then you get a civil war. And there's been a lot of things put in place to ensure that doesn't happen again. Anyway, number 5, the wealth gap versus economic growth paradox. The US celebrates free market capitalism and the idea that economic growth benefits all. However, the growing wealth gap suggests that economic growth disproportionately benefits the wealthy while the middle class and working class struggle. Calls for redistribution or reforms that address inequality are seen as threats to the very economic system that drives growth. So I've talked about this before, that on Wall Street and in the investing section of this country, you need to always be growing. Like, your business always has to be growing. Like, you cannot be stagnant. If you are stagnant in your business, you are told that you are losing. If you're not growing, you're falling backwards. And that's just something that we not only believe in this country, but we incentivize it and we have laws around it. So there is a big belief in the business realm that you always have to be growing no matter what. But because of this, there are all the other people in our country who are just like trying to be stable. They get fucked, because there's all this growth happening in one section of the country to one people, and the rest, like, because of there being a wealth gap, the more they grow, the more everyone else shrinks. Okay, just due to the scale. Okay, like if you have billionaires in your country and they are buying crazy shit, the economy gets used to that and the prices rise, because more money is being spent, more economic activity is happening. So the bounds of what is there's kind of like an Overton window. And so the more money there is in the system, the more businesses can charge. And so like that's one of the causes of inflation. Like, there's just more money in the system, more value is being created overall, but then it devalues people who are not actively growing their net worth. Okay, they're just trying to be stable, but then one day they wake up and they're like, hey, my fucking $5 cannot buy 6 things at Taco Bell anymore. It can buy like 1 burrito. Or like my grocery bill used to be $100 and now it's like $300. So what the fuck? And you are seeing more and more of that. Our country rewards economic growth so much that it forgets about everyone else who is not tied to the growth. And that is creating the wealth gap. And so there needs to be some sort of compromise between that. And right now, the government is, for the most part, ignoring that. And they are telling everyone the bootstraps, you got to pick yourself up by the bootstraps, propaganda. But one day, and that day is coming soon, it's coming very soon. They're burning down warehouses. Something is going to happen to create more equality. It's either going to happen through elections, or it's going to happen another way. I'll just say that. So let's move on. Number 6, the representation versus electoral college paradox. The US is based on democratic representation, but the electoral college can lead to outcomes where the winner of the popular vote loses the presidency, as happened in 2000 and 2016. This paradox undermines the idea that every vote is equal, raising questions about the fairness and legitimacy of the electoral process. Okay, so this one's very easy. We don't have a popular vote in this country. We have an electoral college. And what an electoral college is, it's kind of like a middleman. They say, I am going to represent this amount of constituents, and I'm going to see what they are voting, and I am either going to agree with them or I'm not. For the most part, they agree, but there can be times where the Electoral College disagrees. And why is that? Because they are seen as more educated in their position, and they are like appointed in their position by their constituents. And what, like, they will say, okay, they voted this way, but I believe the best option is the other option. Okay. And they truly believe like they are like doing the right thing. Okay. And there is incentivization to not do that, because usually what happens when the Electoral College does that is that they get voted out. So yeah, it's stupid. It's fucking dumb. And Republicans have said, if we get rid of the Electoral College, there will be no more Republicans elected. So there are interests in keeping the Electoral College. It's a antiquated method of voting. There's probably a reason why it's there. I'm sure at some point people would just vote within their town, and they would have a trusted person go to Washington, and that person would inform Washington like who voted, and it was a very trusted position. And now it's like in the modern day, it's a pale imitation of what it used to be. Anyway, let's move on. Number 7, the federal rights versus states' rights paradox. The U.S. operates as a federal system where certain powers are delegated to the national government and others are left to the states. This creates constant tension, particularly on issues like healthcare, abortion, gun control, and immigration. States' rights advocates want local control, but national problems often require federal solutions, leading to a push-pull dynamic. Okay, so what I'm saying is we have a national government, okay, and they govern, okay, that's why we have them. But there are also states, and the state has a government, and they govern. Okay, so ideally, the federal government should handle problems on a national scale, and states should handle problems on a state level. But there are times, especially with border states, that the federal government overreaches and tells the state, you have to do this or you have to do that. And the state sometimes rebels, and they will say, you do not live here. You do not understand like what you're asking us to do. It's going to put us in a bad position. Okay. And that is the paradox. We can go into like other things like the abortion issue and stuff like that, healthcare, and gun control, obviously. I'll talk about gun control. And this is going to piss off the people on the left that are listening to me. If you are still listening right now, 40 minutes into the video, I do believe to a certain extent that we should be allowed to have guns. Okay, it's the fucking Second Amendment. And I am from Texas. So obviously, just the culture here is very pro-gun. And it's not just a culture, it makes a lot of sense. Why? Because in the South, there is a lot of land. Okay, it's not like living in a city. There's a lot of land, and there are a lot of space between houses. And if there are a lot of space between houses, guess how far a police department can be, and they have to cover a certain area. If you live in a rural area and you have to call the cops, it could be a long time before the cops get to your house. So you need to have some way to defend yourself. All right. Now, I don't think that we should be allowing people to have assault rifles. Okay. I don't like the AR-15. That is the school shooter gun. I've held an AR-15. I've fired one. It is not an assault rifle. Okay. AR doesn't even stand for assault rifle. A lot of people think it does. It doesn't. An AR-15 is a single shot rifle that you press the trigger and it fires. And it's crazy that it is it's so fucking heavy. If you're a liberal person and you're like, I never want to hold a gun, I've never held a gun, I just want you to know an AR-15 is fucking heavy. It's very unwieldy. It's so heavy that I cannot imagine walking around for an hour holding that up and shooting people with it. Because it's just so, if you're not trained, it's just so fucking heavy, bro. And when you fire, there's a recoil, and maybe it is a skill issue, but I am very fit and I can even maybe a school shooter is able to do that because they are being pumped full of adrenaline, but at the same time, it's almost like a pistol. You can't fire it automatically. I don't know about magazine capacity. I have no idea how much is allowed on an AR-15. I can't imagine it's too much. But yeah, like an AR-15, it's very destructive, but it's not an assault rifle. It's not a machine gun. Okay, it's still something that you could. It's still something that you could see the use in for killing wild animals. All right. I mean, there's this, the meme of like the feral hogs, 30 to 60 feral hogs or whatever. That is a legitimate reason to have an AR-15. Okay, there could be a bunch of like pigs coming after you, wild pigs, and you need to have something that can kill something very quick, kill another animal very quick, very fast. All right, so I just want to say that about gun control. Okay, like there is a reason in the South that it's very needed. Okay, but feel free to argue with me. I don't care. Let's move on. Number 8, the immigration paradox. The U.S. is a nation of immigrants built on the ideal of welcoming those seeking a better life. Yet, immigration policy is one of the most divisive political issues, with concerns about border security, economic impacts, and cultural integration. The paradox lies in how to maintain the nation's identity as a land of opportunity while controlling immigration in a way that satisfies competing political and economic interests. Okay, so I already talked about like why I talked about at the very start of the video, like why you need to allow immigrants, but do it very strategically. It's not just that. There's also like we do need their labor. And a lot of people don't want to admit this, but Americans will not fucking do hard labor. Or they'll do it and they'll demand a lot of they'll basically demand like what you should be paying them. Okay, but this country is so used to slave labor. Okay, Asian slaves were the ones who built the railroads. Black slaves are the ones who were on the plantations, and before there were tractors and before there were like reapers, there was black slaves. Okay, so now today, who is picking all the fruit that a machine cannot get? Immigrants, specifically immigrants from South America. Okay, so our country has always loved slave labor. Okay, and like they're not slaves per se, but they might as well be because they get money. They do get money, but they don't have enough to be comfortable. They are mainly getting the money to be uncomfortable here and send it back to their home country where it can actually have their family that is still living back there live a very comfortable life. So, and if the whole family moves over here, it's usually because they want the kids to become U.S. citizens and get a U.S. education, therefore getting a good job within the U.S. economy and helping the parents. Okay, they're not doing it. Like, not all of them are like, we need our kids to be college graduates so they can help us. Okay, it's really more for the kids, at least from what I've seen as a Latino who lives in this country. And yes, I'm a U.S. citizen. Okay, like my fucking ancestors crossed over or whatever. I know some of them actually were living in Texas before it got annexed by the U.S. So a little bit of my bloodline is like pre-American Texas. Anyway, immigrants, we need them, but we don't treat them right, and we're actively trying to kick them out. That's the paradox. Number 9. There's only 10, so we're almost done here. Number 9, the free speech versus hate speech paradox. The U.S. values free speech as a fundamental right. However, there is a growing concern over hate speech and misinformation, especially in the context of social media. This creates a paradox where protecting free speech sometimes leads to the spread of harmful or false information. Yet, restricting free speech to prevent harm challenges First Amendment principles. One of the things I value the most, if you have been watching my videos, is free speech. Okay, free speech is so fucking important. It's probably the most important right we have in America. It's so fucking important. Why? Because we need to be able to exchange ideas. All right, you cannot just silence people into believing a certain agenda. It has to survive the marketplace of ideas, and that's why we have free speech. The risk of that is you also allow hate speech, okay? And a lot of people will not tolerate that. And I understand. I totally understand why, like, you would not want to allow any form of hate speech to be go unpunished, as it were. But I have to say, like, the freedom of speech in this country is worth more than other people's feelings, okay? But you will also say that hate speech can contribute to the spread of information that can lead to harmful situations or violence, okay? Then that's fair. That's fair. So that is the big paradox. It's like, where is the line? Where is the line? And I would say when you're straight up calling for violence, that is the line. When you are saying there is a fire in a crowded room and there's no fire, like that is, and people get like trampled and they are running over each other, like that's where the line is, in my opinion. It's not you are spreading some harmful propaganda that somehow down the line indirectly leads to someone like going crazy and shooting a pizza shop. Okay, like that's not enough to limit free speech. Okay, it literally has to be like a call for violence, in my opinion, or you are spreading misinformation to the extent that people get harmed directly, not indirectly. I'm saying like very directly they get harmed. Okay, because like when you say hate speech is indirectly harming someone, that means that there is a long, I guess, a set of actions that happen between the speech and the actual like violence that occurs, that it could be stopped at any one of those points. Okay, even in an echo chamber, I would say. So yeah, we'll keep it at that. Free speech versus hate speech. I'm very pro free speech, no matter what. And yes, like even as a minority, like I'm totally fine with free speech. Like I'm even fine with like slurs. Like you won't hear me say them on YouTube and in real life, but I'm not gonna chastise someone for using slurs, okay, like casually. And like you can say that's fucked up, and it's more like if they're not directing slurs at a person hatefully, like if they're doing it hatefully, yeah, I'm not gonna fucking tolerate that shit. But if they're just saying it offhandedly, casually, like I don't see how that harms people. I really, it hurts their feelings. Yeah. But like, you gotta, like, the country cannot cater to everyone's feelings. Okay. If you're actively hurting someone's feelings in my presence, I'm obviously going to fucking say something. But if you are just saying like a joke that is not, that I know who you are and I know you're not actually like, oh, some kind of supremacist or whatever, I think that's fine. Okay. I'm okay with racial horseplay. Anyway, number 10, there's the last one, the capitalism versus democracy paradox. The US prides itself on being a democracy where every citizen has a voice. However, capitalism often results in the concentration of wealth, which can lead to disproportionate political influence by the wealthy through campaign donations, lobbying, etc. This undermines democratic ideals, as those with more resources have a louder voice in politics, creating a tension between democratic equality and capitalist inequality. So our country is very, very pro-capitalism, and I still am, I'm not a capitalism fanboy, all right? I will just say capitalism is the best thing we have right now. I really do believe that. Until we come up with something better, something more equitable, capitalism is the best thing we have right now. Why is that? Because only under capitalism can you do whatever you want and make a name for yourself, and you can build a business. You don't have to ask anyone for permission to a certain extent to like if you want to be a carpenter, you can be a carpenter. If you want to make rugs, you can make rugs. If you want to be an OnlyFans creator, you can do that too. If you want to be a YouTuber, you can do that too. If you want to do all of those things, you can do that too. But like, no one's stopping you. No one can stop you in this system. Any other system, it's like either the government directly tells you you cannot do this because like this is what your family is allowed to do. Your family line. In India and China, that's how it is. And China has, I will say they have eased up quite a bit. I don't badmouth China as much as like other people. Okay. But and in socialist countries, becoming an entrepreneur can be so disincentivized that it is basically telling someone that they can't do it. Okay, because like you can start a large business and then the government just takes all your money. And this is good for the populace as a whole. You know, I think it really works for like Norway and like Sweden, because those countries are tiny. Okay, so it's fine. It's fine to do that there. And if you don't like it, you can always move to America. But we also have democracy. We also have a government for the people, by the people. Why is that? Because not everyone can be an entrepreneur. As I said earlier, some people have to do labor. Some people have to just get by. And they need to be represented, or they're going to be taken advantage of. Okay? So what capitalists at the very highest level try to do is that they will lobby and donate to campaigns, and they just try to bend the rules. And a lot of the time they succeed. And this is a symptom of unchecked capitalism, of a weak democracy. Okay? And like, we need to stop allowing lobbying, or at least have such a reform that this cannot happen. Because there is no reason Israel should be telling our politicians what to do. There's no reason why Amazon should be dictating certain laws on like our commerce and our mailing system and stuff like that. You know, like, they shouldn't make the rules. And I understand why they want to, because they want to be more efficient. They want to do certain things to make their business better. But to a certain extent, it's fine. But after a while, you are starting to erode the benefits of the other people in this country to advance your business. Okay, so that's like the capitalism versus democracy paradox, and that thing right there is probably the thing causing the most tension in the country right now. Anyway, these paradoxes, they're very deeply entrenched in our political system. There's like, you cannot resolve them, okay? Because they are just so inherent to the way the country is run. Okay, it tries to be a balance, okay? And whenever the balance is so shifted to one side, the other side will come and correct it, okay? They're like, these contradictions will never end. As long as America is the country it is now, these paradoxes are there to stay, because they are the structure. They're like the code that this country is running on. Okay. And you can favor one side or another within these 10 paradoxes, but it's never going to be solved. It's not something that's solvable. There is no comfortable end state. And like, maybe that's a good thing, because that means it can shift to to a more appropriate position for the time. Anyway, these things will never be solved as long as the country is alive. You can shift it one way or another, but it will always be there. This is a weird, like, yin and yang type shit that is at the heart of America. Anyway, I hope, again, as with every video I do, I hope it has broadened your perspective even a little bit. I'm sorry if I've offended you or whatever, but I am just being honest. Okay, I can only do that. I cannot think of every little person's feelings who might disagree with a certain opinion I may have, because that would not be honest of me to do. It would not be truthful. I am not out to hurt people's feelings. I am not out to spread hate of any kind. That's all I want to say. All right. I am just here to spread ideas to broaden people's awareness. That's it.